In 1782, the city of Osaka was a merchant hub where the food on the table was in the middle of a major shift. For centuries, tofu was a rare, sacred food of Buddhist monasteries, documented as an offering for the gods at Nara as early as 1183. By the Edo period, that mountain delicacy had become a street staple. This image shows how vendors moved through the city with wooden buckets, selling fresh curd directly to laborers and craftsmen for a few copper coins. While the ingredient was everywhere, the instructions on how to use it were not. The cookbooks of the 18th century were often frustratingly vague, offering a list of components and a loose suggestion of a method, while leaving the specific ratios to the cook's memory. The man who solved this problem was an artisan seal engraver named Sodani Gaksen. He spent his professional life carving tiny, precise characters into stone and ivory, a job that demanded an obsession with microscopic detail and exactness. When that artisan's precision met a cheap, everyday peasant ingredient, it produced a manual that any townsperson could actually use to improve their dinner. Gakusen published the Tofu Hyakuchin, 100 Delicacies of Tofu, in 1782. It sold out within a year, triggering a wave of sequels and sequels to the sequels. This wasn't a collection of culinary daydreams. The pages provided specific measurements, like cutting tofu into 2.5 centimeter cubes, and precise ratios, such as a 7:3 mix of grilled tofu and miso. Gakusen categorized all 100 recipes into a deliberate 6-tiered ladder. It starts with the Jinjohin, or everyday dishes, at the base. From there, it climbs through more visually refined recipes to the Zeppin at the summit, the pinnacle of the ingredient's potential. This structure presents a specific argument that a cheap block of bean curd can be a simple supper or a masterpiece. The difference is found only in the attention the cook brings to it. To test this ladder, we have to move into the kitchen and cook through the engraver's instructions ourselves. We begin at the bottom with Hiyayakko. It is cold tofu, cut into cubes, and served with simple condiments. The book starts here to show that when an ingredient is high quality, the cook's primary job is to get out of the way. As we move into the middle tiers, the techniques become more physical. Recipe number 47 is kaminari tofu, or thunder tofu. Instead of using a knife, the instructions tell you to crush the wet curd by hand, creating jagged, irregular pieces. When those wet pieces hit a pan of hot sesame oil, the water causes a violent crackling and popping. The sound of that reaction gives the dish its name. Mastering these high-heat techniques required specialized gear. This ceramic charcoal brazier is the type of equipment Gaksen assumed a confident home cook in the city would already own. In the peaceful Edo period, merchants and craftsmen had disposable income to buy these tools, allowing them to treat everyday cooking as a form of creative expression. At the very top of the ladder, we find the motoki, or mock dishes. These recipes attempt to build complex culinary illusions using only plant-based ingredients. Because Buddhist dietary rules forbade meat and fish, temple cooks spent centuries figuring out how to mimic the flavors of the ocean using nothing but bean curd and vegetables. To make tofu taste like this grilled river sweetfish, a cook had to deconstruct the texture and the salt of the animal and then sculpt those memories back into the bean curd. Stripping away a creator's standard tools often acts as an accelerant for their imagination. Depriving these cooks of real fish forced them to turn a plain white block into a technical marvel. The final result of the thunder tofu is surprisingly complex. The jagged, hand-torn edges of the curd catch the sesame oil and seasoning in a way a clean knife cut never could. After Gakusen's book became a hit, it created a new genre of literature called Hyakuchin mono. Soon there were books of 100 recipes for daikon, for sweet potatoes, and for almost every other common ingredient. The engraver's perspective had shifted how the country saw its own pantry. People began to look at the most ordinary foods with the same eye for detail Gakusen used to carve his seals. Eating these recipes today isn't about extravagance. Tofu was, and still is, a frugal choice. Instead, these dishes are about the dignity of a plain thing. They show what happens when the most overlooked item on the table is treated with a craftsman's respect. If you have a recipe that turns a simple ingredient into something more, I'd love to hear about it. Tell me about the dishes your own families have been passing down in the comments.